Okay, well, I'm just going to begin by asking, where did the idea for Hyena first come from?
Yeah, the idea was probably born over 10 years ago. Me and Peter, the main actor, knew someone socially that we later found out, through knowing him as being a bit of a party animal, we later found out that actually he was an undercover policeman. And he was the most unlikely undercover policeman you'd ever, or this time in my life, I'd never expected somebody like this to be a policeman, because he was very cool, he was complete alcoholic, he was a mess, but he was also, away from us, he was a very good policeman, undercover. So that it was more that it was based on his look, rather than actually, because as it went on, when I started to actually write the film, it became, as a writer you get ideas all over the place, so it becomes other things. It's not just, so that was just the seed, was this guy, but everything in the film is really other things that I picked up along the way, either based on fact or stuff that I've thought up myself.
In regards to the research, I mean, obviously a story like this must require quite a lot sort of research into the police force and the kind of criminal underground. Was that quite disturbing?
Well, the criminal underground, I don't need any research into that area. I'm from the East End and my family ran pubs in the East End, so that became, but it was the police side that was interesting more. That side was the one that, to go into it, you need to really get it correct, because there's so many times you see a lot of police stuff, mainly TV stuff, where, and having spoken to policemen, they're like, please don't do the bill, please, please don't do this, please don't do that, please try and show it. So you have to try and be truthful to what you're researching. So it was 4 years of research that went into all the sides. Every single sort of idea that's in the film was based on that intensive research, which I think is the only way to work, really.
I mean,
rather than winging it, Yeah, let's just, that'll be all right.
I mean, it's imperative to be truthful, but it doesn't shine the greatest light on the police force in many regards.
I mean, yeah, and that's what I have to say as well. It's like, we did spend a lot of time with police that were not corrupt, and I got to see, and so did Peter, because we went out and we got to see actually what a great job they're doing and how tough it really is. It's a real tough job. And so I know that there's a lot of corruption in the film, but I'm hoping that obviously the procedural stuff and everything, and also even the worst corrupt police that we met, they were still really good at their job, even though they got there by means that were not necessarily the correct way to go. They only ever go after people that are, criminals. They don't go after, innocent people. So I suppose it's as long as you show that they are actually good at their job.
And I mean, I'm not surprised at all to hear that you're from London, because you get a real sense of London in this movie. How important is it for you that that's the case? Because so many films set in London could almost be set anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that was my, that was the thing that I'm always really aware of, and I'm always, London never really, to me, looks like the London that I know in films. And I'm really, I don't know why. I don't know why it's so hard to film London in a way that looks beautiful. It bothers me. So I think location, I'm obsessed with location work, using not sets, using real locations. And London is my city, so I know it really well. And I just want to make it another central character, in the film. And even if in the future I probably won't always be making London films, but wherever city, I think, films to me, you should really, the location, as I said, is another character in the film, I think. And I like the idea of Hyena was always going to be, it was always going to be nocturnal, it was always going to be shot at night. Unfortunately, logistics prove that you can't actually shoot always at night, but I hope from Hyena you do get the impression that it's mainly it's a nocturnal film, a bit like a hyena. You know, it's out at night and these guys are in the shadows and out on the streets and in cars. Yeah, I just think we don't do that so much. I don't know why. Mainly because a lot of the time, places like they're filming Birmingham and they're making out that it's London, so they don't want to show too much, and they send a second unit to do a shot of the Gherkin, and then that's their lot, you know.
I mean, talking of logistics, shooting on location in London must throw quite a few challenges your way as well.
I mean, when the line producer saw how many locations I wanted, he said, this will not work, this is ridiculous. It was like 50 locations in the space. We had a three-week shoot, was it? Yeah, it was a 3-week shoot, so yeah, it was tough.
And of course you're reuniting with Peter again, obviously, who's your cousin. Did you write the role with him in mind? Was he who you pictured?
Yeah, because we met this guy it was the original inspiration a long time ago. So we talked about this project even before Tony. We talked about Hyena, and I even had the title a long time ago. So, yeah.
It must be great if you're sort of working with a family member. You can probably be more, I guess, sort of honest, and there's not as you can kind of shout and say do this and do it that way, I guess, and it doesn't take as much away because it's sort of family.
Yeah, I think. Well, it's weird, yeah, but also because we're, you know, we work together, but we've always been very close cousins. You know, we've always been sort of best friends as well as just not being a cousin. So we know each other so well. So we don't really have to say too much to one another, you know. There is times when you do just get more annoyed because it's your cousin, maybe. You're like, come on, like where you wouldn't, but that's normal, and it's the same with him. He'd be like, well, don't tell me to do, you know what I mean? It's vice versa. So, but yeah, what we have is a real understanding of what each other wants, which is perfect for a director-actor partnership. You know, that's the key. That's the absolute key.
And in terms of sort of keeping it in the family, of course, your brother's in the who provide the soundtrack for this. Was that? Yeah. It must be nice to kind of to make it so kind of inclusive in that way.
It is. It's great. And again, the same thing comes into play there, that we know each other so well. Obviously, Matt was well known not for soundtracks when I was growing up. He was well known for his albums and his written music. But I knew that his music always had a cinematic feel to it, and I knew that probably one day he would move into soundtrack work. So it was a natural fit, you know, and when I first started doing my short films, I used like instrumental tracks of his that he'd already done and put them in the film, and then it grew to actually collaborating, and then I take a very, you know, I'm in the mix and we go to the studio, and it's great. It's great to be sort of in there and recording this, you know, the soundtrack. I think it's his best one so far.
Of course, there's also sort of Stephen Graham, Richard Dormer in the film. It must make your life that little bit more easy when you've got sort of talent like that involved.
I always work with great actors. No, I mean, that's the thing. The casting process takes quite a long time. I use a lot of non-actors and, you know, professional actors, so I like to mix them both. I mean, the two, Jevat and Orly, have never acted before, the two Albanian guys, and I think they hold their own completely with the likes of Richard Dormer, Stephen Graham, Peter, you know. So I think it becomes, I use a sort of workshop period that I insist on before every film, where we spend a lot of time, just me and the actors in an environment, maybe with a camera, and we talk, we go through stuff. We may not even necessarily talk about the script, we talk about life, you know. There's all this thing where we get to know one another, and it's very important to the process, so that when we get to shoot, we're all completely on the same page, because when, you know, you've got a film shoot and there's so much to do, sometimes you haven't got the time. But the actors, by that point, know more about their parts than you do. So they're not saying, well, what's my motivation here? Well, I'm lost, you know, because we've had those conversations months ago, you know. So it becomes, for me, it's the only way of working.
And I was wondering, I mean, without sort of giving too much away, I found the ending to be quite brave, quite unique as well. I mean, I was just wondering what inspired you to be quite, I don't know, creative, I suppose, and sort of quite abrupt of your finale.
See, without giving any spoilers, I think, for me, And believe me, I've thought about the other options and I looked into every scenario, and I believe that it's the only way to really end the film. I do have a complete vision of the final outcome. See, again, it's tricky without giving it away. But let's just say, I think that's the only way that I could really end the film.
So what's next for you now? Have you got anything in the pipeline or any ideas sort of brewing?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. They're both very different to one another. So the one is a smaller thing, one is a bigger thing. So it's whatever. They may both happen at the same time, or one may come first. I don't know yet. But yeah, they're quite exciting and very different things.
Because so far you've only directed your own screenplays, but you're sort of open to receiving scripts and seeing.
Yeah, I read a lot of stuff, and I'm always I'm open to, you know, because it takes, again, it's a time element. You know, it takes so long to write and direct. So I'll always write and direct still, but you know, I will also direct if the script resonates and it's something that I really feel that I can make my own. You know, yeah.
And just finally, of course, we're just at the kind of the end now of the kind of the big awards season and sort of the Oscars and BAFTAs. I was wondering, British film.
Why didn't Hyena get anything? Yeah, I was wondering exactly the same thing.
That was my question. But I just wonder, I mean, because you know, Britain was very well represented at these sort of awards. What do you make of the kind of the state of the British film industry at the moment? Do you think it's in quite a good place?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's what it is. Yeah, it's fine. I think it's fine. I mean, you know, our talent is obviously always win a lot of awards, so that's good, isn't it? That's good for the industry. Yeah, it seems to be in okay shape. Yeah, no, it is. It's fine. As far as I'm aware, you know, as I say, we win a lot of awards, so that's good for the UK film industry.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much.
Much appreciated.
Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey